Hi, I'm Jon Oltsik, and welcome to my podcast, The Cybersecurity Bridge. I'm really excited to do this and start this series. The Cybersecurity Bridge will feature three sections. We'll talk about the present, we'll talk about the future, and then the Cybersecurity Bridge section is how do we get from the present to the future? What are the ramifications? What are the changes that will take place? What's driving it? Things like that. So with that, I'm really excited to have my first guest on, Lambros, to discuss AI, all aspects of AI. Rock, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. Beyond grateful and honored that I'm your first guest. I'm Lambros, the CEO and founder of RockCyber. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for about 25 years now. Last couple really focusing on AI strategy, security, and governance. Kind of rose up through the technical ranks, worked at large companies such as eBay, and ran a global network and security operations center for a component of the Department of Homeland Security. And before joining RockCyber, I was the CISO at an oil and gas company here where I'm based in Denver, Colorado, that ended up getting acquired by Marathon Petroleum. And, after a couple of years of that integration, decided to spin off on our own. That was 2018, and here we are. Thanks, John, for having me.
My pleasure. And Rock, I'm glad you said that you've been in cybersecurity for 25 years because we're going to start the segment with cybersecurity trivia. All right, so here you go. You didn't know this was coming. So one of the big events early in our careers in cybersecurity was the I love you virus. So was the I love you virus, did that take place in 1999, the year 2000, or the year 2001?
It was either 2000 or 2001 for sure.
Which one?
I am going to say 2001.
Oh, well, you had 50-50 chance. No, it was 2000, but I mean, that's a long time ago. For those of you new to cybersecurity or don't appreciate or know your cybersecurity history, the I love you virus was it was an email delivered with a attachment. The attachment had a Visual Basic script. When you opened it up, it took your contacts. It took down files. It was purportedly the fastest spreading virus of all times, and this is a rough estimate, but it's purported to have cost 5 to 10 billion in damages. So worth looking into for the past. But let's move on to AI, Rock. So everyone's gaga about AI, and so here's some statistics I found. So McKinsey says 65% of organizations reported regular use of generative AI.
Yep.
And this is a company named Grandview Research says, let's see, the AI market is expected to continue to its rapid growth, reaching around US dollars 1.8 trillion by 2030, with a CAGR of 36.6%. And then some use cases. So JPMC is using it to analyze legal documents. Siemens using it to predict maintenance. The Mayo Clinic is using it for lots of different things. So my first question is, are you gaga about AI, Rock?
Absolutely. I am. It is, it's not just another technology, right? It's a seismic shift that, is going to redefine business, industries, and in some cases, economies, frankly. But the catch is, without structure, governance, and strategic intent, it becomes more than a liability. It becomes more a liability than it does an asset. And, I think I run into too many organizations where their strategy is, AI all the things, and that's not a strategy.
Yeah, so that was my next question is, I talked about some use cases, but are you seeing kind of a structured approach to AI or a kind of a much more tactical, ad hoc approach to AI? What are you seeing?
I've seen it actually across the board, but most of the clients that we deal with are just starting their AI journey. And it's been a much more tactical approach. You know, again, kind of that AI, all the things mentality. And, they're just trying to wrap their arms around it. Like they literally don't know what they don't know, which is why, they bring us in to help them kind of help formulate the strategy, the use cases, and then the governance structures around it.
So talk about the different roles. Are you seeing CEOs get involved? Obviously, CIOs and CISOs have to be involved, but line of business, are you seeing them getting involved? And are CEOs treating this as a business objective or a business process, or do they see it as a technical thing?
No, they're treating it as a business objective because I think they recognize the value that AI can bring. But, their level of involvement is largely, hey, roll out AI, figure out which parts of the business, figure out the use cases, figure out where the cost benefit analysis, the ROI, and where can AI help within the organization. Now, where I'm seeing a little bit of that breakdown is all teams like taking that and trying to implement AI as fast and as rushed and as much as possible without having kind of a strong, whether it be a governance committee, an AI like a working group or whatever that case may be, to ensure that, hey, that their initiatives are actually aligned with organizational objectives, that they've got some cross-functional collaboration, that they're not developing or rolling out or integrating or implementing AI in a silo. That's kind of where that disconnect happens. The direction is coming from the CEO, but so people take that because they want to make the CEO happy and run with it without a ton of thought behind it.
So your background obviously is in security, and so what are you seeing from CISOs? Where are they participating? What questions do they have?
Yeah, I have seen CISOs and talked to CISOs who are all in on AI, right? And their questions are more around, all right, what guardrails do we need to put in place? Which models are we using, right? Are they susceptible to name anything on the OWASP top 10 for LLMs, prompt injection? How's our data being handled? What does our data governance look like? Because in my opinion, you will fail at your AI initiatives if your data governance isn't strong and your entitlement management isn't strong. So they're asking those questions, right? It's kind of a forcing function for all those data governance projects that they've been begging for budget over the last several years and have been getting kicked down the road because, data governance is hard and messy and needs to get legal and privacy involved. So they're asking those types of questions, right? A lot of the foundations still apply.
And just this morning, I read an article that this was in CRN. It was an interview of 10 cybersecurity vendor CEOs about AI. And of course, it was all rainbows and blue sky and everything. But from your perspective as a CISO, where would you be, or where do you advise your clients on cybersecurity AI within cybersecurity, and what caution do you have?
What, cost or caution? I'm sorry.
Caution.
What, caution? Yeah. So I advise them, I think there's an excellent use case around security operations, right? You could start small by building a little AI model or an AI agent to do some log analysis and maybe some tier 1 triage, and then start integrating, create another agent and start integrating some vulnerability data, create another agent, start integrating some threat intel data, but finding like small use cases to allow your SOC analysts and developers to kind of build those AI-enabled systems or workflows safely. And, from a cost perspective, eventually, I fully believe you could replace like your entire SIM investment as a result. If you just got really good data, a strong data lake, and, get your analysts trained up on, essentially some AI development, some Python, or at least leveraging LLMs to be able to create some code where they can start creating some of these agents to help them in their day-to-day operations. The cautions are, Right? The attack surface expands greatly. Um, you know, SOC analysts aren't AI developers, so you have to invest in training for them. Um, and you know, there are unique vulnerabilities within AI and machine learning models that we haven't traditionally dealt with, right, in cybersecurity, right? Whether that be, model data poisoning or prompt injection or model inversion attacks. Those are all, prompt injection is kind of like SQL injections, but, when you're developing an AI system, an agent, a framework, a model, whatever the case may be, those are unique vulnerabilities that you need to consider.
Great. Let's move on to our second section, the future.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of data out there about project failures. So, and I'll just read one. This is from the World Economic Forum. While 66% of organizations see AI as the biggest cybersecurity game changer this year, so I guess this is relative to security specifically, only 37% have safeguards to assess AI tools before use. So that, and there's data failures, there's skill set failures, but is the future, do you think, is the future sunny or is the future kind of, again, cautious?
I think the future's sunny because what I'm seeing is, so traditionally in cybersecurity, we had to beg, borrow, steal to implement people, processes, and technology, right? To implement controls, to change user behaviors, to change, perhaps the way some business processes operated, to, shore up the cybersecurity posture of the organization and to mitigate risk. From the AI perspective, I'm seeing much more of a pull function from executive leadership in the business. They know AI is a business enabler. They know it can be absolutely disruptive. They know there is significantly liability involved if, the AI does bad things, depending on the risk of the application, such as, let's call it like a credit scoring system or something like that, making decisions that could affect, user lives, frankly. And so they know they're on the hook. So there's more of a pull function from executive leadership in the business in support of AI security and governance.
So when we talk about the future, what's your time frame? What are you thinking? 2-3 years?
Yeah. Because I'm seeing it now. Like, we're doing AI risk and governance engagements now. And now, will anything ever be fully secure? Absolutely not, never, right? But at least understanding the governance behind it and integrating specific AI governance into your existing risk management and governance structures, I think is already underway.
And when we look out 2 to 3 years, what's your sense of the autonomy that will give AI? Because everything that I've read, everybody I've talked to said, be really cautious now, have a human in the middle, it's too early. I don't know if you share that opinion, but if you do, what do you think changes in the next 2-3 years that makes that less of a concern?
No, I absolutely share that opinion. I was actually teaching a workshop last night, and I'm like, I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan and, his classic phrase, trust but verify. And we're absolutely still in that phase with AI right now. We've got hallucinations and, AI, even some of the deep research type models creating false citations or not citing the proper documents, right? So you still got to check but verify. And now with agentic AI right around the corner, like if last year was the year of generative AI, this year is going to be the year of agentic AI, where you're relying on the AI agents to make more and more autonomous decisions. I think there's a path for us to get there. I think if we're going to get a little bit technical, like vector databases today, which is kind of the backbone of a lot of AI models, they're not great with long-term memory, which is kind of critical to effective agent work. So we need to improve upon that. We need to get really good at retrieval augmented generation. And then we just need track record, some time, right? To feel comfortable that, all right, we've gotten our models and our agents to the point where we can trust them with certain decisions. Because the challenge with human in the loop is it doesn't scale. So let's take that same credit scoring scenario. And now, great, I've implemented agentic AI and I could process 100,000 loan applications a day. Well, if you've got to hire, an army of people, 10,000 people to review each and every one of those loan applications, then you've blown through the ROI, right? Then there's no value into bringing AI into that scenario. So that's, we'll see how that turns out. That's some of the work that we're working on at the Open Web Application Security Project, or OWASP. And it's not an easy challenge.
Yeah, and I look in the future, and I think to really meet this promise, number one, we need a new degree of connectivity. And so maybe some open standards, open APIs, because agentic AI is all based on the ability to connect to all these different systems. And I think especially in security, we're sort of limited there by proprietary technologies. Then I'm also concerned about skill sets. I think it's one thing to wave our arms around about the technology, but this is going to take process knowledge. It's going to take technical knowledge. We're going to have to get really good at defining objectives and then measuring our progress against them. Is this consistent with what you're thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So another use case out there is that 80% of AI projects fail. That's from the Harvard Business Review. And a lot of the reasons they cite are bad data, operating in silos, but then lack of knowledge as well. And, I think, from a cybersecurity specific perspective, I think the cybersecurity engineer of the future is frankly going to be an AI and machine learning expert. And, they don't even need to know how to code in Python, but they need to embrace leveraging AI to generate code needed, or help build agents. There are a lot of low-code, no-code platforms out there to build agents to help analyze those logs and all the threat intel and do a lot of the correlations and kind of the day-to-day security operations work. And then, we're getting to a day where, even like you could have adaptable firewalls on the fly, right? And I think the cybersecurity engineer professional of the future looks vastly different than, you and I growing up.
Yeah, no more I love you virus.
Yeah, I wish. If my only problem was that it emailed everybody in my contact list that I loved them, okay, great. I might have to rebuild my Exchange server because it fell to the ground, but I'm okay with that. It wasn't encrypting anything.
That's true. All right, let's move on to the third section, the cybersecurity bridge. So we've talked about the present, we've talked about the future. It's not really discrete. There's kind of a continuum of activity that's happening today to some extent, and certainly will happen in the future. But how do we get there? So I know you've thought a lot about frameworks and integrating the business side with the technical side. So how do we do that, and how do we do that in a way where we benefit more than suffer from this technology?
Yeah. So, as we know, AI is no longer optional, right? And it's rapidly evolving. We have all these regulatory things and compliance things coming down the pipe, like the EU AI Act and all the various state bills. I live in Colorado, and we were the first state in the nation to have an AI regulation on the books. And like you mentioned earlier, the World Economic Forum report said only 37% of companies effectively have AI governance in place. So I created two frameworks. One to help organizations define their AI strategy, and another one to help them work with their governance. And that first framework is called RISE. And, it stands for Research, Implement, Sustain, and Evaluate And think of it, the research phase as laying that groundwork for success and identifying which business problems AI should solve. Think of implement as turning that vision into reality. Now you're developing your AI infrastructure, you're getting people trained up, you're starting the governance processes, which you could think of like as a blowout into care, which I'll go through in a minute. Sustainability or sustain ensures that you have continuous value. So you're measuring the KPIs that you would have defined very early on in the research phase to make sure that you're not one of those Harvard Business Review statistics of 80% of AI initiatives failing. And then evolve, right? It's a continuous improvement process and ensure long-term success. Now, as a subset of that, strong AI governance is an imperative, right? And it's not about slowing things down, right? I'm going to steal a quote from my friend Malcolm Harkins, where it's, his analogy is that we don't put high-end brakes on a Ferrari to slow it down. We put high-end brakes on a Ferrari to allow the organization to drive it really fast, really safely. And it's incumbent upon us as security and frankly risk management leaders to be able to balance that innovation with risk management, because innovation is always going to outpace us. So the governance framework I created is called CARE. It stands for create, adapt, run, and evolve. I'm drawing a blank here. And create is building that governance foundation, right? This is where you're establishing your policies, your risk assessment models, ethical guidelines, what you will and won't do with AI, aligning those governance frameworks to organizational objectives to make sure you're all like marching along the same path towards the same goal. And you want to make compliance an enabler and not a blocker. I can't stress that enough. No different than we would in the cybersecurity space. Adapt is embracing flexible implementation of the framework, because the AI space is moving so fast, right? If we roll out a framework and it's like, hey, let's review our policies once a year, sorry, that's not enough, right? It's going to suck to suck for a while, for sure. Because, we may roll out a policy, AI policy today and it's outdated a month from now, and we've got to go through the revision and policy review and approval process and roll out all over again. And I think that's the reality of what we're going to be facing over the next probably year or so, until as organizations, we establish kind of like what our baselines are. Run is, the AI ops, right? It's maintaining operational excellence. It's monitoring the performance of the models, monitoring for model drift, bias being introduced in the models, or whatever that case may be, and establishing your incident response protocols. Your incident response plans are going to absolutely have to be updated for AI type of threats and incidents, because your ransomware playbooks today do not apply. And evolve is, again, from a governance perspective, taking the lessons learned, rolling it back up into the create phase for updating your governance processes, right? And, it kind of ensures that your AI governance process is living and it's adapted.
Yeah, what I really like, Rock, is the flexibility. So research, because not only do you care about what your organization's doing, but what's your industry doing? What's the global impact? And you really need to this is so new that you really have to keep your eyes open. And then the continuous improvement in your operations, in your development practices, in your IR, all really important. So I love what you're doing. We're kind of at the end of our time here. Not kind of, we are at the end of our time here. So let me ask you one final question. So what's the one takeaway? And I guess I'm gonna not ask you for one, but I'm gonna ask you, what's the one takeaway for business people? And what's the one takeaway for security people? And you can throw in some IT angles if you want to.
Yeah. So first of all, like for business people, AI is not a side project, right? It needs to become a fundamental core capability of your business. Without strategy and governance, like I mentioned earlier, it becomes a liability and not an asset. From a cybersecurity perspective, people embrace it. Right? I still run into some cybersecurity professionals that are complaining that, we still haven't met our foundational CIS controls. And I'm like, well, AI can help you quickly close those gaps given the resources that you have. So you need to embrace it because the organization's embracing it, and you don't want to be left behind like we have historically in the past with cloud, with IoT, all of the above. So we've learned our lessons there. Let's apply it this time. And from an IT perspective, get ready for some architecture changes, whether that be in your on-prem systems or within your cloud environments. Because, as we know, if we're developing AI models essentially to go to market, GPUs are expensive, right? Cloud services to train models are expensive. So, capacity and budget planning is going to remain critical.
Rock, thank you so much for being my first guest. I really appreciate it. This was great talking to you. And so for the audience, I hope you liked it. Please give me your feedback, comments, suggestions for speakers, suggestions for topics, and I'll be back again with the next edition of the Cybersecurity Bridge in 2 weeks. Thanks again.